Okay, I'm just starting the webinar. I'll start with the introduction. Okay, great. I'm just going to start with the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's session on tech mega trends impacting the two-wheeler industry for a session which is aptly titled Two-Wheeler Tech Trends for 2022 and Beyond. This session is brought to you by the team at Two-Wheeler, Three-Wheeler and EV Forum, or as we are more popularly known, TWF, in partnership with Here Technologies. My name is Rohit Dewan, and I'm the event director at TWS. While a lot of you are already aware, but for some of the new attendees who are joining us, just to give you a quick introduction, TWF is India's premium C-level two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and EV event. And before we begin today's session, I wanted to let you know about the agenda. So before we begin today, I will be kicking off the proceedings for this live session with a short introduction, which will be followed by a brief presentation by Mr. Rajesh Bhadragiri, who is the head of two-wheeler experience at Here Technologies. Once the presentation is concluded, I'll be introducing the speakers and the moderator for today's session. And our moderator will then give you a quick overview of the session and then initiate the discussion that will last for around about an hour. We will also devote some time during the presentation and the discussion to run few polls to obtain your feedback and keep the session interactive. Post the completion of the discussion, we will take few audience questions in the Q&A segment at the end of the discussion, right? Your active participation is important to make this session a success. And right now we have everybody in listen only mode, but this is how you can interact with us. You can share questions. At the bottom of the screen, you will see a control panel with a Q&A box. You can insert your questions in this Q&A box. We will take these questions in the Q&A segment at the end of the session. You can also choose to upvote these questions. This will help us in addressing the most burning topics. We also invite you to share your insights in the poll questions that will be flashing on your screen at regular intervals. Do note that we have the session streaming live on YouTube, and anyone who has registered for the session will also receive a recording of the session post the completion. If there's something else you're interested in knowing, please feel free to reach out to us. Apart from that, you can also, I would request you to share your insights in the feedback form that opens when you exit the session. This helps us in improving the standards we already have in place. Okay. So before we begin today's session, I wanted to first of all thank our partner for today's session, Here Technologies, for supporting this session. Here is a location data and technology platform which moves people, businesses, and cities forward by harnessing the power of location. By leveraging their open platform, they empower their customers to achieve better outcomes, from helping a city manage its infrastructure better, or a business optimize its assets, or guiding drivers to their destination safely. To learn more about Here, you can visit here.com. And now, to shed more light on Here Technologies and the innovations that they're working on, I would like to invite Mr. Rajesh Bhadragiri, who is head of two-wheeler experience at Here Technologies. Just to quickly introduce Rajesh, he's co-creating two-wheeler experience for unleashing the mobility excellence using Here location intelligence. Rajesh has worked with Hyundai, Ford, and Airbus in the past and comes with over 16 years of experience in product management and strategy consulting across automotive and aerospace industry. Over to you, Rajesh, to take it forward.
Thanks, Rohit. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, people joining from across the globe. So here is a global global player. So I also see that people from the post that we did in LinkedIn, people from Americas, people from Southeast Asia that also, like the post. So I assume that they are also in this session. So I'm going to share my screen and yeah.
Sure.
We will just have a look. We will have a look at what Here has installed. So I'm more a believer in the pragmatic product development, product co-creation, product creation. So what I mean by pragmatic, one example is like before getting into developing this whole two-wheeler product, I did interviews on the field. So I went to interview the end users across 14 cities. So the 14 cities included a couple of cities in America, a couple of cities in Europe, a couple of cities in India, and yeah, a slightly more number of cities in Southeast Asia. So why did I do that? Because that is where I get to know what the actual wish or actual requirement is all about. And also I interviewed the retailers and also the people who are distributing the vehicles, because they are the ones who are directly listening into the requirements from the customer. For example, hey, I have this EV. Why don't we have such functionalities? Why don't we not have this functionality? So they are one other source of information. Of course, I also rely on the data analytics, data inputs that we are getting from our colleagues. So that is where it is lying. And okay, so thanks for that introduction from Rohit. So before getting on to the next slide, I request Rohit to share the poll here. So we have certain questions that needs to pop up. Yeah. I would like to understand what is the knowledge about here. So how does people know here? So here is a location provided only for, yeah. So what do you think? So is it only for automotive, motorcycle, maps, transportation and logistics, media, telecommunication, mobile devices, or all of them? So I would like to have your feedback. So please do provide your votes. I hope this should be fine. So may I have the results just popping up, Rohit? Wow, good. So thanks for that. So I understand majority of the people understand that here is versatile, and that is exactly what I'm going to show. So automotive, motorcycle, maps. So motorcycle, yeah, slightly disheartening that there is only one person who is, or one, has voted for that. But this presentation is going to change that view about it. So thanks, Rohit. So I'm moving to explain you that we are versatile and serving customers across domains. So we are across the transportation and logistics, media, retail, public sector, technology, telco, and automotive. So location is a complementary feature in almost every industry domain. Thanks to COVID, looking at the positive side of the opportunity offered by the COVID disruption, everything that is moving needs location and the location index. So the mobility is of paramount here. And yeah, doing so, we are also influencing the lives of people across the globe. You may ask, how do we influence lives of people across the globe? So one example is, that in Southeast Asia, in Asia, general tendency is that every household has a two-wheeler. So we offer a solution, and today, if you have a two-wheeler, it is a source of income for you. People had disruptions in their professional services, and I see when I did interview a lot of people on the field who are delivering food or who are delivering the postal or services. They were all part of a different organization earlier, and now with the whole delivery services improving, with the T&L coming into picture, so anybody who has a motorcycle can survive, and they can definitely have that as a part of their earnings. So that is one way of influencing people's life, and through the mobility services that we are offering. So of course, I would not go into the details. Thanks to Rohit, who introduced and who provided this information about HERE Technologies, what we are and what is our aim and where do we stand in the market today. Just to give you some numbers. So we have over 35 years of experience in map making. We are number one in terms of location platform. And in terms of the operations, we have over 200 countries and territories of data. We have 3D landmark information. We have API calls transaction of over 100 billion, and we have estimated vehicles providing HERE real-time sensor and probe data, so approximately 21 million. So this is our global coverage, and this keeps evolving. This is not a statement data that I'm showing here. So this is all about the the information and the wealth that we have in terms of the data and content. That already shows you and connects to the earlier part of the presentation that I did, that we are versatile. So yeah, before moving to the next slide, there is another poll. So where I would like to understand what is your expectation with reference to bikers' needs. So I understand that the participants in this forum are either a OEM manufacturer or a solution integrator and even end users. So please request your poll choices. Good. I think we could publish the results. I hope people are now well versed with their polling tools. Good. All of the above. Nice. That's good. So 53 people, more than 50% of the participants have voted. That's good. Yes. So let's move to what a biker needs. So a modern biker's experience starts with here, and it is routing and navigation, EV routing API, and then we have the in-dash and helmet experience. So when it is all about routing and navigation, so the basic necessity that we have to cover is a turn-by-turn navigation with or without traffic, within mobile or in-dash. And we also have the pre-trip calculation, pre-trip experience, which is all about, staying at office or staying at home, calculating the route to your destination and getting everything set before you start the mobile, unlike before you start the bike. Unlike where it is in a car, you just sit in the car and then the in-vehicle infotainment just takes over. For two-wheelers, it is mostly the pre-trip that is going to be of paramount importance. And on-the-go experience for both in-dash and mobile. So this is pretty much needed. And today, with the evolving trends on the EV routing, so what is more important, what is the challenge that we are trying to solve or address is like the consumption on the route. So this is the consumption anxiety, or the anxiety about my charge getting drained. And this is something that we are addressing with our solution. And also the range map, which is tightly coupled with the first point that I explained. So the range map tells you with the current amount of battery, how much distance I could travel, could I, make my destination. And the next item is all about the battery management and operation. So may I request the people not speaking to mute themselves? Yeah, thank you. So the battery management and operation is for both the fleet operators as well as for the individual users. So the battery management is used for the OEM in order to provide a feedback to the customer saying, hey, your drive was good, but you could have improved or you could have done better in this section of the road. Or the overall summary of the drive could be that, okay, you were in the economy zone, but you could still improve to better the battery life. So this is one such example of the battery management and operations. So the next most important or the upcoming trend is all about having the navigation or the location intelligence and in dash as well as in the helmet. There are smart helmets which are coming into the markets now, where people are displaying the navigation turn-by-turn instructions, where the user can just have a quick look at the navigation instructions provided in the helmet, the smart helmet, the advanced helmet. So here is also supporting such use cases where we provide a Bluetooth connected voice integration, or you can also have a head unit display, meaning a small arrow, as I explained. So this is also possible with the accessory. So here SDK today supports voice only integration and powering the application without any map rendered or even with the map rendered. So it is versatile in terms of a headless variant as well as a headphone variant. So that is what is all about this modern bikers experience. So this is in a nutshell. There are wide variety of use cases that can be explored, that can be brought in, but this is a snapshot of what is today mostly sought out. So the basic enablers for a good rider experience must comprise of comprehensive and safe navigation experience with our Gear SDK, a localized unique content, which is pretty much important. We have this EV features, which is all about sustainability and being more green and eco-friendly, and of course the after sales support. So after sales support, how do we support in the after sales? So it is all about the location. So you exactly know the location where your customer needs the support for, and it means that when the customer calls to your support service, you can direct them to the nearby service center. This is pretty primitive, but this is pretty rudimentary, but this is something that is not available today in these modern era. So we have only the nearby local mechanic shops if it is in these markets in APAC. But when it is all about integrated services, it has to also connect to the OEM's service centers. So one example, so what we are today defining as an experience to a motorcycle rider is the pre-trip, which I explained earlier. So we divide it into two parts. Like one is the pre-trip experience, and other is on-the-go experience. So what do we have in the pre-trip experience? One example is the SDK, along with location services and other services that we are offering, can act as a pre-trip notifier or an advisor. And the example that we have taken here is weather. So just before you start to office, your daily commute from your home to office. And on a rainy day, you might not know that on a regular route or the route that you are always taking, there is heavy congestion and there are a lot of potholes. So it is not advisable for you to travel in that route. Rather, you can take an alternate route, which would take additional time, but your safety is taken into account and you are going to reach safely your destination, your office. And also it is for you to be prepared that, okay, it is raining outside. So every day, if I start from my home at 8 o'clock in the morning, I may have to start 10 minutes early because I have a longer journey today. So I may have to start at 7:50. And this kind of services can be brought in through a Here SDK by the application. So the Here SDK as a tool set offers all the APIs that is needed. The application has to pull, consolidate, and bring this out to the end user. So this is all about the pre-trip experience that I was just explaining. So this is one of the most common problems that we have, the precise location with geocode point address. This is mostly impacting the delivery services or the people who are going to delivery. What does that mean? So when I have to deliver or when I have to reach a destination, in most cases, the destination is arrived and you get a notification saying your destination is on the right, whereas you are on the left side of the route. With here, we are addressing. So we are always taking you in front of your destination, meaning if it is on the right side, we create a route in such a way that it is on the left side in case of Indian market and right side in case of the right-hand side driving countries. So that is how precise we are enhancing our product. Okay, so before going to the next part of the discussion, I would like to have another poll. Rohit, I may need your help here to pop the question. Okay, so as a user, I'm not worried about the data connectivity. All this time, whatever I was presenting, it is implicit that the data connectivity is needed. So we all know that the world is advancing towards 5G and the state-of-the-art connectivity, but there are still options of having no connectivity. So I would like to take your views about, does it even worry you if you don't have data, or is it of importance for you? So I would give you another 5 seconds. Good. So let's populate the results. Thanks for your help. Good. Okay. Not bad. So 28% of the people, they see, yes, I'm worried about the data connectivity. The others, they don't care about it. So, okay, good. Probably it is true in case of the cities like Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai, where the data connectivity is all good. But when you are thinking about the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities across the globe, it is of importance that you might have or you might lose connectivity. So if you are talking about a recreational driver who wants to go to the mountains and who wants to drive, what if the driver is lost, and if he has to start the navigation, or if he has to search for, he or she has to search for location, yeah? We would definitely need the offline data. Yeah. So in that case, what is happening here? In that case, what is happening is we need the offline data, which would be shared in the next slides. So a robust biker routing and experience, needs a lot of time-saving information, like the accurate ETA. Today, time is of paramount importance. Again, as I understand, people are really, in urgency. They want to reach their destination without any delay. So we are also offering, up-to-date traffic information, more dynamic routing, where you get always the fresh routes with all the traffic information updated. And we are also supporting multiple destination, where you can add multiple waypoints towards your destination. And there are specific motorcycle or scooter information, which is like the POIs for specific aspects, like, okay, this is a two-wheeler, or this is more like a biker's recreation center. So if you are on this route, you can have a stay, and you can socialize with your fellow passionate riders. And then next one, the most important, is all about the turn-by-turn navigation, where we capture all the important information about, like, which right you have to take, or we are providing you with the up-to-date information about the timing of the voice instruction. So if in case you don't have a map information rendered, you can just listen into the voice instruction saying, okay, in 200 meters, please take a left. And also we have products called natural guidance, which is going to tell you, like, at the traffic signal, take a left. So which is even more enhancing, and which is even more good for the user, because you don't need to distract yourself to look into the in-dash or take your mobile out and then look at the turn-by-turn instructions of where I should be heading to. Rather, you can just listen into, and you can guide yourself to the destination. And this is the information about the offline data. When you don't have the network connectivity, you can always download the region. I'm just sharing the information here about India, but we have a worldwide offline map coverage. So we are defining this into the state boundaries in agreement with the local government, local agencies. You can even download the entire India and have it at once. You can also download only the states that you belong to. What we have not offered is at this point, which is publicly available in our applications, is that the citywide breakup. So we have an API which would help you, or the solution integrator, to define only a particular region to be downloaded, because that is part of your daily commute. So this is something that which is always available. But this is not out of the box for end user application, but the application integrator can use the API from us, and it can be configured. And what I am showing here, what I'm presenting here, is available in our Here We Go application. Yeah. So before moving to the next slide, I have another poll, last of the polls that I have. And it is all about, as a user, I'm worried about my safety. So I prefer as much possible a two-wheeler friendly road. I have no opinion. I need to reach to my destination at the earliest. So what do you prefer? Interesting. I'm curious to learn about what is your feedback here. Good. I think we can close the poll, and we can probably try to see the results. Wow, good. I'm worried about my safety. Yes, you should be worried about the safety. Good. Not surprising. So let's move on to the next slide, which talks about how we are enhancing the safety. So the unique local requirements are capturing all critical and relevant adaptable cues. So you can see on the picture to the right side. So there are, these kind of streets existing in the world, where only a two-wheeler can be driven, and it is like it's unimaginable in certain circumstances. So we are covering those road networks as well, and depending on the need. So when you are using the two-wheeler only mode, we always prioritize those routes. In fact, if it is not available, then we choose a route which is for all, which is applicable for all the vehicles. But if given the default selection is always a two-wheeler specific route, and we also take into account a two-wheeler specific restrictions, and that is what you can see on the left hand side, where you see a stop sign, where you see this especially for motorcycles. So we do not allow you to drive in certain roads where we know by default that there are a lot of trucks that are being driven. So that is always kind of a safety impact. So we do not by default provide you that road in our route request. And also if there are routes which are only two-wheeler specific, where there are specialized roads, then we also promote only those kind of roads. Here I have a small video to explain you about the coverage and what I refer to as a two-wheeler only route. So the first video which I'm going to play is all about, a car which is being driven on a main road. Yeah. So again, I'm repeating. So I'm going to stop this video now for reference. Yes, good. So this is the video. So you can see that there is a car which is driven on this main road. Let me go to the second video. It is the same route. It is the same road, but you can see that in the second example, there is a small road which is connecting the bridge, and you see a two-wheeler coming. So what I referred earlier is that when it is in a two-wheeler mode, or when there is a request for a route from a two-wheeler mode, we always prioritize such routes. It is time saving, it is safety, and we also try to enhance the rider experience, because you would have always the opportunity to drive in these smaller roads, which is specific for two-wheeler, and reach your destination at the earliest. So this is the advantage of the content that we have and which we are leveraging through our software solution. So coming to the whole EV aspect of routing and guidance, and also taking into account the advantage of having the two-wheeler mode, is that from the content perspective, we have two-wheeler optimized route calculations as part of our algorithm. We have two-wheeler specific maneuver restrictions, two-wheeler specific traffic model optimized routing, and two-wheeler optimized ETA calculation. So you may ask, what is the difference between the last 2 points that I mentioned? So traffic doesn't affect the two-wheelers much unless and until you are in the Silk Road in Bangalore. Sorry to take that example, but yeah, this is the most common example I got as a quote from the interviews that I have done across, even in cities like Delhi and Mumbai. This place is pretty popular. So so that is of importance. So we have a special algorithm, special calculation that we are using. Okay, and then you can also see how we are specializing the route. So if it is a four-wheeler, you can see my cursor moving. So it is a longer route, whereas when it is like a bike, you don't take this route, rather you take a shorter route, because there is a two-wheeler specific passage which a car cannot take. So it is all about it. And when it is about the anxiety, the slide talks about the range map. So when it is all about the anxiety here, you can see the range map which comes into help, where you as a user would know clearly, if I have 25% of battery, how much distance can I travel, and can I reach to the nearest fuel exchange station or a battery refill station. So this is already available, and we are offering that services through our SDK. And the last demo is all about, not only having the special services, we are also helping the OEMs or the service providers to monetize the data that they have through the geo marketing, what we call. So you can see when there is a bike that is moving into a particular zone, this is all a demo, right? Like this is a service station. So you can see on the left what is popping up for the end user. So when the bike is in a particular zone, and if you have a partnership with a certain service provider, you can always pop up that information to the end user saying limited offer during this rainy season, free of charge for checking tires, tail light, and oil change. So similarly, you will also have the possibility to throw certain promotional options when it is through a petrol station or again a service center and there is a shopping mall. So this is the demo that talks about how the location can be used for safety, which you saw already, preferring the two-wheeler specific routes and restrictions. And also you can help the end user, you can enhance the experience of the end user by providing them the state-of-the-art services. And this is also beneficial because it is mutually beneficial. Customer gets the best-in-class services, and service providers as well as the OEMs monetize the information and also provide the best-in-class experience. So with that, I'm coming to the end of my slide. So we would like to summarize on the key takeaways before I get into the Q&A. So we have what I call as the comprehensive two and four-wheeler solutions. We are pretty strong in navigation, where we are explaining and we are providing meticulous instructions, and we are providing restrictions and all the incident information towards the end user. And our core strength is our map making experience, and we have the state-of-the-art update cycles. I'm just going to push the latest version of the map or updated map in a pretty lean time. So we have a weekly map update cycle through our SDK. And of course, with in terms of aligning to the latest trend, we are focusing on the EV, and what is that we are doing on EV is to ensure that the navigation has a global coverage. So when you're talking about, so I'm not worried about, or we are not worried about the tier 1 cities, because tier 1 cities will definitely get the infrastructure. What we are already focusing on improving our solution is towards the tier 2, tier 3 cities, where the coverage could be pretty less. Yeah. So thank you. And I'm ready to take the questions. So over to you, Rohit.
Yeah. So Rajesh, in the interest of time and starting the panel discussion, can we do the questions once and for all towards the end? Is that okay?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. So if you can just kill the share, I'll just share my PowerPoint. So thank you so much for the insightful presentation and the polls, Rajesh. Thank you so much. So now moving on to the panel discussion, I would like to briefly introduce our expert speaker group. Firstly, I would like to introduce Mr. Lalit Sharma, who is the head emerging technology and innovation at Yamaha Motors. Lalit is currently focused on driving digital transformation at Yamaha Motors. He's using technologies around AI, machine learning, IoT, mobility, connected vehicle, AR, VR, Industry 4.0, with an ecosystem of tech partners and startups. His key responsibilities include bringing in new technology inside the organization, planning and executing digital transformations, and he's also involved in evaluating existing processes and procedures, making recommendations, and driving process improvement and adoption of best practices as well. He also coordinates the aspects of the release of technologies, products, features, functions, customer deployments with Yamaha B2B, CRM, SCM applications in different geographic regions. Next, we have Akash Gupta, who's the co-founder and CEO of Zip, India's largest electric logistics startup. His vision for Zip is to solve last mile deliveries in a convenient, affordable, and eco-friendly way, thereby building more livable cities and a sustainable world. To Zip, Akash brings years of executive level leadership experience in marketing and rapidly scaling up tech and tech assisted businesses at MobiKwik, Snapdeal, Dell, and Airtel. Akash is an avid speaker and has been representing as a thought leader in various electric mobility, startup, and marketing events. The third speaker for the session is Ms. Prerna Chaturvedi, who is an experienced military aviator with a very interesting and diverse background. She's an international business development and an entrepreneur with 25 years of experience across aerospace and defense. Besides a decade of hands-on experience flying choppers across terrains from glaciers to deserts. She has been at the helm of mission control for many search and rescue operations, including earthquake, flood relief, warhead trials, and Operation Vijay. She's also among the few women CEOs to lead an automobile OEM in India and is currently CEO at Evolet, a leading electric vehicle OEM. Our next speaker is Animesh Sahai, who's currently head of customers SAC at Here Technologies. He has almost 25 years of experience and has worked in sales leadership positions for organizations such as CA Technologies, RAD, Juniper Networks, Dimension Data, Oracle, etc. He's an engineer, MBA, and an MIT Sloan alumni. Our fifth speaker for the session is Kapil Shilke, who is the founder and CEO at Tork Motors. He started working in the year 2016 with a clear objective to manufacture high-performance electric vehicles in India. His tryst with EV started during his college days, where he led a team to build an electric motorcycle for racing that contested against the best in the world at Isle of Man, TT, and TTX Jeep Grand Prix, UK. Mr. Shilke holds a master's degree specializing in carbon fiber composite from Oxford Cherwell Valley College and is an alumnus of D.Y. Patil College of Engineering, Pune. His interest lies in product design, development, and manufacturing for EVs. He has also previously worked as Chief Technology Officer for Zhongshan, one of the largest motorcycle manufacturers in China. Our final speaker for the session is Mr. Aditya Tiwari, who is founder of Chelios Mobility. Aditya is an experienced founder working on developing shared electric ecosystem worldwide, starting from India. He has a strong understanding of consumers-centric design and is a believer in deep innovative technologies as a foundation for sustainable companies. In terms of his education, he's a BTech in mechanical engineering from Sardar Vallabhbhai National Institute of Technology. And finally, we have our moderator for the session, Mr. Pushan Sharma, who's director at CRISIL. Pushan has more than 10 years of experience in the field of strategy, research, risk assessment, and competitive landscaping in the auto, agri, and consumption sectors. He has worked with leading automobile, auto component, agri, and food processing organizations, enabling data-backed decision-making. Over to you, Pushan, to take it forward.
Thanks a lot, Rohit, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bhushan Sharma. Like Rohit mentioned, I'll be your moderator for today. And we have an excellent panel for today's discussion. In fact, we have a great mix of manufacturers, service providers, technology leaders, and I'm sure we're going to have a really rich discussion. And the topic for today is quite pertinent. We're talking about the technology trends for two-wheelers in India. And as we see it at CRISIL, we're looking at two-wheelers being the first movers towards mass electric penetration. The segment has witnessed immense interest and financial commitment from new age startups in holistically developing the entire ecosystem. And the incumbents too are ramping up their offering in line with the fast-paced changes. So over the next course of the next 60 minutes, my job will be to dig deeper into the minds of the industry experts we have on the panel today to understand how does the two-wheeler of tomorrow look like, new buyer segments that are likely to emerge, and how their needs will differ from those of the conventional market. And what are some of the key disruptions that we can anticipate in this space? So I'll straight up go to Lalit from Yamaha. And so Lalit, I would want to understand from you, in terms of the innovations that we see in the automobile sector, many of these have been dominated by the four-wheeler industry. And if not actually, at least from a perception perspective. So how are we seeing changes? You know, we're seeing some changes, of course, that have happened in the recent past. But what are some of the, I would say, 2-3 key technological trends for the two-wheeler industry that you see will have a meaningful impact in the coming years? And before I hand it over to Lalit, I'd also request, in case anybody has a counter view, wants to add something additionally, you could just raise your hand. And if time permits, I could definitely come to you as well. But over to you, Lalit.
Yeah, so basically right now we see in two-wheeler industry in India, we have the high volumes. So majorly what is going to be happening over here is going to affect the automotive industry in a whole. So I believe there are three main things which are going to be disruptive in near future. One is the experience around the two-wheeler industries, like the services a two-wheeler industry is providing to you. Another could be the experience and safety. So these are some of the key parameters which I think would be there. So basically, when we talk about the experience is like not only riding the vehicle, but when you go for a servicing or you have the add-on services related to it, like insurance premium or the tire forensics or the battery swappability. So these are some of the experience that we have to provide to the consumers. Overall, maybe in sometimes in future, we would be having a complete digitalization of the automotive segment, in which different technologies would be coming in to play a major role. So over the air enablement, like if we have to make a feature upgrade to a bike, so over the air would be something we would be looking into it, where simply the service provider, they can upgrade their softwares or provide the different services to them. So these are some of the key traits which I think would be there and going to be there in future.
Right, right. Interesting. Of course, I think technology overlay has become increasingly important, and there's been a sharp pace of growth that we're seeing in technology. And I'm happy that you're sharing about how the two-wheeler industry is adopting the same. Now, coming to you, Kapil, and you represent the new age manufacturers, and would like to just understand your perspective as a new age company which is competing against some of the incumbents. How are you looking at the technology innovations? What are some of the aspects that you are looking at over the next few years, which will have a really meaningful contribution and might shape the motorcycle of tomorrow or the scooter of tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you, Pushpan. I think it's a lot to answer, a lot to say about how technology will change. But let's divide this into two parts. So let's say hardware and software. Just to make it more simple, if you have all the hardware right, I think you then can do the software updates and OT and all that. But then you have to design the vehicle like that. And you rightly said, cars have become the most US-speed vehicle. They have rear-facing camera, front-facing, I don't know, airbags and seat sensors. And there's a lot that is happening in cars. I don't see all that coming to the two-wheelers, because there's a large volume of two-wheelers. It's very price sensitive. The elasticity is very low. But let's say where the industry is moving now. So let's say now the game, or what everybody as a consumer talks about, is who's doing the fastest charging, what's the longest range vehicle, where's the power, what does the vehicle look like? I don't think beyond that there's a lot of questions that the consumer is asking. I think tomorrow, when you have the right hardware, then you can basically go and update a lot of the software that you have built on the vehicle. Say suppose a little more range, a little more fast charging, a little more all that. And I think on a vehicle front, if you have to design something, I think the possibilities are limitless. So currently you have a tab on the vehicle. So I won't want to give out USPs, but there is a lot that you can learn from mobile phones. For example, earlier they were just talking about large screen, then they started talking about cameras, and then they started talking about batteries. Now everybody is talking about charging, or now I think they have come back to the M1 processor, or what processor you're using. So I think same will happen with electric vehicles. It's a shifting goal. Currently we are at the hardware level. Tomorrow we'll be at the software level, and then we'll reverse again, come back to hardware. I think that's where we're heading, if I'm answering your question right.
Right. So in fact, I thought I'll maybe touch upon this later, but since you mentioned some of these technologies, just curious to know, we're in a very price sensitive market. The premium segment, of course, is growing, it's doing well, but that's still a small segment. Do you see people, and Kapil, this is again posed to you, people willing to pay that extra price, for those feature-rich models?
I think it will be value for money. I don't think it's expensive or premium, or so I think people buy Royal Enfield in India, the most expensive to ride and buy, and then those sold. So I don't think from that analogy onwards, price is a problem. If you know the consumer, it is your business model. So if your business model supports the USP, value for money, and it is value for money for the customer, I think they will surely. And currently, I believe the way the growth is happening in both the ends, in less than 25 kilometers per hour, because that is not reported. And what is happening in the high-speed vehicle range, I think it's like a dream run right now. So it's just doubling up every month, 30%. I think last day was selling about 50,000, now this 70,000. And is at this rate, I think even a smaller brand like us, who's just starting out, can sell 10x of what we thought about. So I don't see that there are no users for premium. They might be far less than what you could go for 100,000 rupees scooter or a motorcycle. But there is a user out there who's looking for all these features, and that is what the sales are telling us. So it is going to be a feature-rich electric vehicle, two-wheeler zone that I think everybody is going to operate in.
Great. I think the investors will be really happy to know of some of the growth that you're talking about. And clearly, we're also seeing premiumization taking place. It's taking place both in two-wheelers as well as in cars. We're seeing, on the higher end of the spectrum, there's more traction. Of course, that's a little pandemic-induced as well, because the income prospects of the more affluent customers has been less impacted as compared to the entry-level buyers. But now, coming to you, Akash, and on a separate note, and I'm glad, all various manufacturers here, all of us are discussing about technology, how we see it in the future. But for any technology to become economically viable, one requires mass adoption by customers. But to begin with, adoption by the manufacturers themselves, right? We see, some analogies one can draw how the mobile ecosystem, they are sort of coming on a common platform when it comes to charging. And it's a very crude example. But similarly, on the EV side, the kind of charger technology that we have, the battery technology, and then connecting that to the battery swapping ecosystem. How do you see that developing? How do you see that developing? How do you see that coordination happening? Or are we going to see technologies being developed in silos?
Well, I think interesting question, and thanks for having me here. Great to meet the panelists, and thanks, Bhushan. See, what I see is that the key enabler and the key differentiator in the electric vehicle versus the IC engine vehicle is the entire technology piece, right? Because that is something that will continue to evolve. That is the new age, which is very tough for the incumbents to understand that what is the battery technology, what is the mileage that this vehicle will drive, how to charge this, whether to charge or swap, what is the charging time, what is the life cycle of this battery. All of these are questions which are unanswered, and hence the need of technology is very, very important. If you look at what we essentially do at Zypp Electric, we are trying to be that tech platform only, which is kind of solving all of these problems for these people at a single place. So how we are doing that is that we realize that people don't know which product to invest into, right? So the first thing is, who will make the investment? So for that, what we've done is we've created a platform of investments where people can invest into the right assets that we suggest, and we give them a healthy return, right? So that's the fintech piece of EV, financing that we first kind of solved, and then we have multiple platforms who are now solving it for us. The second key piece which came along was the entire charging or swapping infrastructure. Now, there are companies which are building charging infrastructure. There are companies which are building swapping infrastructure. But again, as you rightly mentioned, that many of these guys are working in silos now, and they are waiting for the consumer to come and then start using it, which is chicken and egg, right? There are not many users. They're waiting and watching. And there we came in. We said that we've deployed about 5,000 EVs. We want to deploy 50,000 EVs. You're setting up charging infrastructure. Let's merge together. You set up the infrastructure where my vehicles are getting used, and hence we would dip into your charging or swapping infra, and we'll continue to use it. And we'll tell you which are the new places where more and more vehicles are being applied, so that you can set up the next charging or swapping infrastructure. So that's the ecosystem approach again that we've tried to take. The third thing which comes into maintenance and spares, which is also an unsolved puzzle. That is again something that we kind of work very closely with the OEMs to say that we need these many spare parts. We're working with some startups who are actually, solving the spare parts as well as maintenance hassles, right? Again, bringing it all on a single platform where at least the user is always aware on a click of a button that if I'm stuck, someone is there to help me. And more things we are adding in terms of battery data, in terms of vehicle data through IoT, so that all of this is integrated. And towards the end, the idea would be that how we can actually monetize the carbon saved also for that user, and kind of give them that portion, and would love to explore more companies who are solving the carbon aspect, the battery, I would say the battery recycling concept. That for me is the entire ecosystem, which has different pieces, different silos. But the idea of Zip is to kind of bring it all together on a single place.
Do you see that, Akash, this commonality coming in over the next 3 to 5 years, or are we looking at maybe beyond that, for the economies of scale really to kick in and that entire customer experience then just improves?
Yeah, so I think,
just
to follow up on what you said is that for a normal user, for a B2C user, I think it would take at least 3 to 4 years for them to understand that, yes, now I'm ready to go electric. While there's a clear intent, I mean, everyone wants to go electric, but I think the inherent challenges which we just talked about in my prior, point is what is making a person wait right now, right? When you talk about car adoption on electric vehicles, right? How, if someone is living in a condominium or a large building, how to talk to the RWA, how to set up the charging, how many people, and then if let's say 5 people buy an electric car, how the charging will reach to them in a large, condominium is an unsolved problem, right? Two-wheelers still easier, but if you're swapping a battery, then the charging infrastructure has to be present. Or if you're charging, then again, you have to talk to the building management, or you have to take the battery all the way up to your floor to charge it, which are things that we felt are clear issues. And if we come into the play and tell the people, you don't have to worry about charging, we'll give you a charge battery. You don't have to worry about maintenance, we'll maintain the bike for you. You don't have to invest in the bike also, we'll bring it for you. That is the approach that we have taken to accelerate the entire EV adoption.
Right, fair point. So in fact, that brings me to my next question to Animesh. And Animesh, what we are witnessing is that with organized retail picking up in India, there is a buyer segment that's clearly emerging on the B2B side. And this buyer segment is buying a vehicle with a different perspective, from a more cost-centric perspective. How are you seeing the needs of this buying segment evolve? And how are they really materially different from that of a conventional retail buyer? And what are the cues, some of the cues maybe for OEMs, because this is a sitting segment with common need?
See, when you talk about an institutional buyer or a B2B segment, right? B2B segment, I would say the needs and requirements are very different compared to a B2C, right? Like, for example, if you have seen in last couple of months, there has been a big advertisement where some of these ride-hailing companies and some of these e-commerce companies have, and these food delivery companies have said that they are going to go electric, right? So and there is also so that basically is talking about a push where these guys want to move into the electric, and that's in a more controlled environment. See, if you talk about an adoption on the B2C space, B2C space is a lot dependent on the infrastructure that the government has to prepare, and some of the challenges that Akash spoke about, getting the infrastructure done in the building and all that. While B2B, it's more controlled environment. They can create their own infrastructure in terms of because they have a more organized way of delivering whatever products or goods or whatever they're supplying. They can always plan it in a much better way. Another aspect which comes into when you talk about an institutional buyer, the institutional buyer's requirements are very different in terms of the connectivity, in terms of the connected services that they're talking about, in terms of a predictability, both from the services perspective, both then in terms of the range of the vehicle that they have, when they have to charge, when they don't have to charge, because they cannot rely on a last minute challenge where there is a range is not available, right? And then again, your OTA updates. Apart from that, your diagnostic, crash diagnostic, maintenance diagnostics, all these becomes a very critical factor for them, because for them a ride is money. It's a revenue generating exercise that happens to them. So here the connected services becomes important, and that's where the technology would play a very key role. And that could be one segment. I mean, I remember Kapil also talked about the, that segment about the premium segment, in a two-wheeler, and how large the two-wheeler segment is. So I would divide the entire two-wheeler market, EV market, into three different types. One is definitely the general EV, which would be happy with a point-to-point connectivity. They have a very point-to-point driving. They're okay with a normal kind of an EV vehicle. And there will be one that would be looking at the connected services from a consumer perspective. And then there will be a B2B, which will be a larger segment, which would look at definitely a connected services as a part of their requirement. Apart from that, one more thing that I wanted to point out here is while the EV right now is in a pretty nascent stage in the country, but this is not what is going to remain. I mean, there are enough studies which has been published, which talks about a growth rate of something like 53% for the EV. And they say that by 2030, 35% of the Indian two-wheeler is going to be an EV two-wheeler on the road. So while I'm not saying that IC is going down, definitely IC also has a growth trajectory. But the biggest growth that is happening in that entire two-wheeler market is on the EV side and less on the IC side.
Fair enough. Interesting observations, Animesh. Thanks for that. In fact, that brings me to my next question to Aditya. And so Aditya, what we are witnessing, Animesh spoke about the ICE vehicle, the internal combustion engines. Over the last 3 years, we've seen a lot of demand pressure on internal combustion engines, right? And it's not just through the pandemic. Right from fiscal 20, when we stepped into the pandemic, we entered on a weak footing. And we've seen demand erosion almost, the industry was about 20 million, it's come down to 1.5 million. But at the same time, there's been a lot of cost escalation that ICE vehicles have seen because of the transition from BS4 to BS6. And we've also seen that there's been immense traction for the low-speed two-wheelers, especially operating in the 25 kilometers per hour category. And the business that you are in, the customers are not looking at a two-wheeler only from commute from A to B. It's also a mode of business and utility, right? So with the gig economy picking up in India, how are you seeing innovation in the low-speed utility two-wheeler market? And what are some of the things that we can expect over the coming years in this segment?
Sure. So, Pushan, basically, when we talk about low-speed scooters, right? So low-speed scooters were the ones which actually created a lot of awareness in the very, early stage of EV adoption, because those were the scooters which were actually presented at a very good price point, competitive to the IC engine vehicle, even without the subsidies, Now the subsidies have come up, and the higher speed and the premium models have become a bit cheaper, where the adoption is becoming possible. Coming to your second point, see, when we talk about utility, or especially B2B, the technological aspect become very important, because these vehicles which are being used for utility aspect, first of all, there the usage is happening in a rugged manner, right? So the drivers expect a lot of quality, reliability going in the vehicle, even if you are buying in an affordable manner. Then the maintenance and services part has to be, point on. So what we are trying to do is, play a data game here, where, we are trying to diagnose and do all of the things via data-centric and data-enabled technologies. So we are always connected to the vehicle of the driver, and we'll be able to provide, better services to the drivers. So I think in the utility market, quality and reliability is of key importance. Other than that, the efficiency has to be very good. All of these gig workers or the delivery agents require very good efficiency coming out from the vehicle. Even with the smaller battery packs, they require very good range, So the efficiency part also becomes very important. And the lastly, I would say that for the maintenance and services, you need data connected technologies.
Fair enough. Interesting. How are you seeing the willingness of the customers to pay extra, in that buyer segment for these additional features? Because, even when we talk about, say, the commercial vehicle industry, there is a lot of business sense from a total cost of ownership perspective. But people still look at the business from or ownership from a total cost of acquisition perspective. Are the customers, in your view, are you able to distinguish between the two and convince them on the ownership bit, some things, the aspects that you spoke about?
Sure. Basically, so see, I'll answer this question in two parts. One for B2B. These days, what I have seen is in B2B, it has become a must, to have data connected technologies. Just looking at, because everyone wants to secure their asset, so it has become important for the finance model, for the insurance, for everything that connected technology has to be there. So for B2B, what I'm seeing in the market, it has become a must. And even the users are willing to pay for it. And even the, B2B players like ecosystem player who are leasing these vehicles are willing to pay for it. Coming to the B2C part, where, when I talk about the personal commute market, so I'll just draw a parallel from the mobile market. Right now, mobile phone or smartphones are not just for calling and text messaging, right? So according to me, even the vehicles of the future will not be about, moving from one point to another point. Those will be acted as a gadget, which are always connected to your smartphones, maybe your smart watches, and people will not be only paying for, going from one point to another point. It will also be about the experience and the mobility part. So even in the B2C part, what we are working on, that we are bringing these sort of technology even in the affordable market. And we are not saying that, hey, if you are buying a premium scooter, then only you will be getting these technologies. But even if you are buying, suppose, a 60K or a 70K scooter or a bike, you will have these technologies with you.
Very interesting. Great. We now go back to Lalit, and maybe step back from some of the innovations that we are seeing, and just maybe reflect upon, Lalit. We've seen a lot of disruption, not just being caused by the pandemic, but also the geopolitical tensions, commodity price escalations, supply chain issues. So just want to get your thoughts as to how are you seeing the impact of these factors on the pace of innovation, the supply chain, which can enable innovation overall?
So I just want to answer this, in right now, we the market segment in India for the automotive is very big, very huge. And not only we are making for India, but we are also exporting our products for outside market as well. So the consumer feeling what we have in India is they want the global products on Indian prices. So on the technical front, we have to keep on upgrading of whatever we have to provide on the safety point of view, or the connected bike of point of view, or we have to create the vehicles for connected as well as for the end consumers. So these are some of the aspects which are coming into the market for India, and we have to prepare ourselves for the same.
Sure. But are you seeing some gaps that have come into the market in terms of, say, for example, plans of innovation that are getting sort of decelerated because of some of these supply chain issues, or are these creating opportunities to manufacture some of these locally?
So we have seen the trends which are coming up for the localized, the government is taking consideration of the localized markets or increasing the localized productions herein. And also for us, we want to push the localized productions in here.
Sure. Great. So Animesh, coming back to you, Aditya mentioned a lot, on how data is getting used in various aspects, and how the two-wheeler of tomorrow might not be just a commute, an asset that helps you commute, but an asset that helps you stay connected, right? How are you looking at the role of data? Something globally a lot is being spoken about, a lot of regulations are coming in. How do you see the data today residing? Does it stay with the OEM, the technology provider, the customer? Will there be need for regulations more actively in this space, or you see the industry at large taking a lead there?
Okay, so that's a lot of things. Just correct me if I miss out on something. And good for bringing it, because I actually wanted to add to what Aditya had mentioned earlier. See, my experience, and since I work with a lot of the OEMs over here in the country, is that there are one of the key elements, the three things that these guys are very focused on, a lot of OEMs on the EV side. One is definitely the design element. How does the vehicle, how does the scooter look like? Second is the battery, the kind of technology that they're using for the battery, and how you can increase the reach. And the third and the most important part where they spend a lot of time is on creating, is on the data side. Okay, and when I say a data side, how you can create a lot of value-added services over the connected vehicle that they're providing on the two-wheeler. So again, there are multiple ways of doing the connected vehicle system, right? It could be using a companion app, it could be on the cluster of the vehicle. But the best part is that in one of my discussion with one of the OEM, they're talking about something like 7 to 8 different types of value-added services. And the moment we talk about 7 to 8 different types of value-added, we're talking about 7 to 8 different types of monetization. Right. And another aspect which came in sometime during the discussion was, a discussion around cost of acquisition versus total cost of ownership. Now, when you talk about a consumer looks at it from a cost of acquisition, not from a total cost of ownership. And that's an unfortunate fact, but that's how they look at it. From an OEM, it is important for them to understand how you can reduce the cost of acquisition by adding these value-added services apart from whatever the PLIs and the FAMEs and whatever that you get it. Second aspect, you talked about the data. See, today any EVs or any connected vehicle is I would say, a powerhouse of data. Right? It's like something that is moving in. It is giving you a location data. It's giving you traffic data. It is giving you POIs data. It is giving you the UBIs, the user behavior, how he's driving. So there are n number of data that gets generated, and all this data that gets generated is definitely not stored in the. It's stored actually at my understanding, and I may be wrong. Is stored at the OEM, maybe in some kind of a data center, and I understand there will be some kind of an agreement between the consumer and the organization, allowing him to do that, keeping in mind the data privacy laws. But once you have the data, you can monetize the data. Maybe like for example, let me give you one example. I mean, everybody, all of us are very familiar with Flipkart and Amazon, but how many of us are familiar with a marketplace for a location world, right? So this is something that here we've got a marketplace where you can bring this data, list it into the marketplace and actually monetize it. And a lot of people are doing it. I mean, there are a lot of large two-wheelers and four-wheelers with whom we are talking for this data acquisition, where we take this data and we utilize it for betterment of our services, at the same time for reselling. So there's a parallel stream of revenue that is also getting generated. Pushan, I hope I answered your query.
Right. But I know it's a fairly complicated topic, as well as at a very nascent stage. So thanks for providing your perspective there, Animesh. So let me now go back to Kapil, and Kapil, what I would want to understand from you is, if you were to imagine the motorcycle or the scooter of tomorrow, and I'm sure you do that actively, wearing the CEO's hat. And if you were to imagine two aspects 5 years down the line, one is the table stake technology, what every bike of tomorrow, 5-7 years from now, will have, and one is the differentiated technology, right, which is more premium, where a customer who wants to pay that extra price for that extra performance or the technology aspect might buy that. How do you see these two bikes? One more mass market, but with standard table stake technologies, and one is more differentiated and premium one.
I think the question.
Sorry, and before you do that, maybe if I can request Rohit, if you could launch the poll on the connectivity solutions and infotainment while Kapil provides his response. Yeah.
I think a big issue right now, and I think what will happen tomorrow, I believe, is going to be fast charging. That is, after 5 years, I think everybody's going to talk about as a vehicle, this is what is happening, and that will become a norm. Not be currently we are at 1 hour. We can reduce that drastically. There's a lot that can come into play. That is one that I think from a motorcycle standpoint. From two-wheeler transport, I think three-wheeler swapping might work, might not work. But two-wheeler long range, what's happening in cars, similar should happen for a motorcycle. Fast charging is what I think will become standard. That nobody will realize that this is what we were talking about 5 years ago. I don't know what the long-led technology would be. I think driver assistance could be one that I think can come along. I have all the inputs for traction control. I have all the inputs for throttle. I have all the inputs for speed. I have all lean angle. I have everything that a traction control or ABS and all these or what do you call it? Premium sports motorcycle. So I think all the data is there. I don't know how do we, I really don't, we've not worked on it. I'm just giving out ideas. How do we make sure that, or how can we implement traction control or driver in that sense? So if we can do that, that would be a very good use of the data that is having on the vehicle, on the cloud. It is on the vehicle, you just compute it there, help the driver, make it more safer. So I think more reliable, more safer vehicles is what the future is. And if I take that as a standpoint, fast charging and long lead, I think driver assistance, if I can bring that on.
Great. So I think fast charging.
Kushan, I can just add a bit there.
Yeah, sure.
When you talk about the technology roadmap, as the industry moves in, right? There are multiple things that is happening today as we speak. That is maybe on the calls and messaging, turn-by-turn navigations, performance information, servicing alerts, geofencing, geo-tracking. These are something OTA updates. These are something which is currently available, and some of the I would say the two-wheeler EV which is there in the market already has it. Now, when it comes to the looking at the crystal ball gazing, as you call it, looking at the future, there could be something like we have remote start, we could have a keyless start, we could have anti-theft warning, we could have remote diagnostic, we could have voice assistant, right? We could have music and streaming services, distance to zero information, e-calls, pressure monitoring, tire pressure monitoring, usage-based service. So there are multiple. The list, as we move forward, the list goes on and on, right? And with every passing year, the list will only get more exhaustive. And I will also tell you, this list actually will follow what is happening in the four-wheeler. People will start learning and start adopting onto the two-wheeler side. Sorry.
Right. I think there's no place better than India for it to happen because we have the largest market.
I think, just to add, I think India needs more safety. So all these features would be right. They will come along. They would be used, not used, because as soon as you start getting them for free, India will accept it. Then you'll realize, are they really important or not? But I think one thing that as a motorcycle rider, I usually see and ride and our motorcycles, I think safety will become important. Anything that you can use technology for, make it more safer for the user to ride.
Right.
I'm more interested in that because we don't have the most jazziest vehicle right now, but I think we must have the most reliable vehicle. We will have the most safest vehicle to ride. I think these are, if I can use technology for that, so it's like Zerodha. I get all the stock buying, but the feature is free, right? So that is why I'm doing it. As soon as I do option selling, then it will become much expensive. I think if I can bring on that safety feature, like hard, look, I'm just giving you financial feedback.
Right.
Work. So I think if I can use technology for that, is what our end goal is, and I think customer might appreciate that more.
Right, the safety nudge. So Akash,
I'd like to add my point.
Please.
Yeah, sorry. I'll have to stop by after 5 minutes. So just making my point on this. See, for a fleet operator like ours, it's very, very critical, right? There's no question about it that we can't wait for all this data, right? We need it now, right? Maybe a B2C user would not want to pay for it, but for a fleet operator, who's managing 3,000, 5,000 fleets, it is very, very critical that this data point is available to us in terms of where the bikes are, what's the mileage, what's the driving behavior, what's the safety, tracking, whether there's an impact on the bike or not. The entire maintenance, optimization happens through all these data points that we save. So yeah, so we, and I would say any fleet operator, it's very, very important for them to have a tech first approach, where these are, I would say, hygiene rather than these are a premium. These are a hygiene, which is very much required. And we from our perspective, have taken a tech first approach to ensure that the fleet management and the entire asset control is well in our, purview.
Right. So Akash, in fact, I know you have to leave in a bit, so I'll pose the next question to you as well.
Can I ask one question to Akash? Just one.
Please, go ahead. You're taking my head, but you have the liberty to do.
So data versus if you're doing a swap, connector which is much more reliable, what you would want?
Can you repeat that question? If I'm doing?
So if I give you a choice between data and a very reliable swapping connector or a system, what would be your choice?
Yeah, I would prefer data for now. That's very, very important. Yeah.
Good insight. Thank you.
Thanks.
Data is a mind here. Of course, all of us realize that. Akash, coming back to you, and wanted to just understand a little more on EV as a service, right? And we've been seeing in the Western world, for the car market as well, there are a lot of cars that are not purchased but taken as in a rental model or pay-as-you-go model. We're not seeing that meaningfully in the Indian market yet, even on the car side. Some of the reasons could be pricing, etc. How are you seeing that market evolve in India for two-wheelers? And are we seeing, beyond, some technological innovations that are going to enable that?
So see, globally, if you ask me, the entire car sharing or scooter sharing market, it's living its second life, right? Pre-COVID, there was a different life. In China, there were different, startups which scaled and then had to descale. In Europe and US, now there are a couple of startups which are really doing well. Voitier, almost $2 to $3 billion valuations. So, but if you look at the McKinsey study, on pure shared mobility, micro mobility, self-drive rental market, even globally, it's only after 2025 when the pure self-drive rental market is going to start peaking, and by 2030 it will surpass the cab hailing market. That's as per the global studies. India usually is a little behind in terms of the global mindset, especially when it comes to, I won't say that it is very behind, but at least 1 year or to 1.5 years behind. What we feel is that we are amidst this where we see this accelerating sometime around 2024-25, when shared mobility, self-drive mobility, people picking bikes and sharing a bike between 5 people in a day will become a major reality. Why? Because one, the infrastructure will develop by that time. You'll have a lot more places where charging or swapping could happen. Fast charging could be a solution, or quick swapping would be, pervasive. Second is the mindset and the culture, which is one more very, very important factor in the Indian, ecosystem, will evolve, of using things on a shared way, right? So I feel that once people will start using it for a day, they will start getting comfortable to use it for an hour. And that's the way that we also want to move in this direction, where we develop behavior and then, offer people a shorter shared plan, right? And the third thing is the infrastructure. So I talked about charging, swapping, I talked about mindset, and the third thing is technology, which is very, very critical. The technology has to evolve to, offer people and also optimize that your asset is not broken, asset is not lost, asset is well in control, because the other person who's going to ride it, he has to get it in the best condition. And that's where all these tech, data, AI, ML, battery engines will help you, solve those concerns.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your perspective. In fact, in the Q&A section, we're getting a lot of questions. And, Kapil, you mentioned about safety. We've been hearing a lot of news around some of these electric vehicles catching fire. Of course, this is a new technology. So, of course, it's spoken about, read about a lot. But, this is a question open to Aditya, Kapil, Lalit, any of you all who want to take this to talk about what are your views on this? Are you seeing this as outlier events just to quell concerns on the customer side?
I think they're serious. I don't see they're not serious. It also depends on what. So it's not a one problem. So it's not that there's heat or there's fast charging or there's something wrong. I think there's a process that somebody has to. So there are a couple of 4 or 5 things. I think you can do a complete panel 4 or 5 hours on this, but I'll just to give you, manufacturing is one. Short circuit might be a big problem here. So it will not be short circuit happen over it's vibration. There are a lot of things that will go wrong for that one particular problem. So safety is critical. I don't think, and I think a lot of talk is being happening. Hona hi nahi chahiye. So this should not happen. I think the probability is not going to be 0. It is going to happen. It is going to So suppose a best case scenario should be 1 in a million or more than that. I don't know. I'm just saying. But the probability is not going to be 0. I think as manufacturers, we are working on making sure we get the cells right. There is a lot of testing done before that. There is fire retardant material. There are a couple of series of steps. So 6 is getting fire. But before that, you can actually control that till 5 steps. And then there would be an accident where you can't control, and there would be a fire. So I think probably it is not 0. It is a serious concern. I think as manufacturers, we take all the this very seriously, and it should be solved, or it will be solved in the long run. Because imagine you've got 100 years of experience to building a petrol vehicle and it still burns, and this is about batteries are about less than 25 years old. So let's say 2-wheeler batteries are less than 10 years old. So in the whole journey, so you have 1/10 of the time, which is not an excuse, but that's the reality.
Sure. Thanks, Kapil, for providing your perspective on that. In case anyone else also wants to chip in, feel free. I'll till then maybe go to the next question, which we are getting from Prabha, who's talking about, let us know about the infrastructure being created in the form of charging stations. And, just to add on to that point, how are we seeing, because, there is rural India, and I'm trying to club a couple of questions here. There's rural India, which has different needs. Typically, 2-wheelers has been more rural heavy. Urban India has different needs. Are we seeing swappable batteries becoming very prevalent, or batteries that can be removed and charged at home? Or are we expecting customers that they will get home charging done, pulling wires through large buildings initially when the charging infrastructure is not there? So just what are your thoughts on charging infrastructure availability and the concerns around that?
So people want, sorry, jump in. I don't want that reality which you said, that people will put wires through or put their vehicles in lift. I think there is a RWA norm that says you can install a charging station or a plug, a simple 5 amp, 10 amp plug closest to your parking spot. Second, there are spaces in bigger societies that they have already started putting those plugs in cities like Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, where high-rise are common. So there are newer societies that are already doing it. And one more data point, I think the 5 ampere plug penetration in India is about 95%. every state, every city, every village will have a certain number of electricity right now, depending on. So currently, 5-10 years ago, it was very bad. Now it is much more evolved. I don't think every village has a petrol pump. So if you look at from that perspective, at this data point, I think there is a fuel station or a charging station already available. You just have to make it a little more simpler, and then standardization. I think that's what I want to touch upon. Standardization for 2 and 3 wheelers. 4 wheelers, they have they've just standardized for a CCS2 combo. For 2 wheelers and swapping, they can't yet. So I think that will help a lot. So it's easier. It is not as difficult as setting up a fuel station.
Right. From your perspective, how are you seeing, the buyer segment that you're catering to? From a charging infrastructure perspective, is it primarily home charged? Like, Kapil mentioned, of course, not pulling wires, although that's also something that has been seen. Because, for a housing society, a complex, it's one person's problem to begin with, right? Who has an EV. When it becomes mass in a few years, of course, it's a common problem to be addressed. But just coming to Aditya, from entry-level, low-speed two-wheeler market, how are you seeing the charging infrastructure anxiety there, or the development?
Right. So, talking about the whole India, we have different demographics, and especially when we talk about a affordable product, the penetration will be more even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, and even in the rural market. So what we are working on is we are sort of creating a hybrid sort of a structure where even you can swap the battery, you can detach the battery from the vehicle, take it to your room and charge it there also. Because, when we talk about parking, almost I would say 70 to 80% of India won't have, a spatial parking or something like that. Most of the people are putting their vehicles either on the road or somewhere in the shelter in their, home itself, right? So when we talk about the rural India or the mass penetration, the hybrid solution should be there. Secondly, so these are the, actions from manufacturer side. But other than that, also, I think the people of India are very smart when it comes to, adopting to these technologies. So these days, they are deciding that they want to, transition into electric vehicle, and they are also finding a smart, solutions to charge it by themselves also. So that's what I thought.
Sure. Thanks, Aditya. Our next question is from Arijit Datta, who's talking about the rise in commodity prices, including the prices of lithium cells. How do you see the impact of that on demand for EV two-wheelers in the short term? So any one of you, Kapil, Aditya, Lalit, if you want to take that. Kapil, do you want to talk about maybe the lithium prices and the impact? Are you seeing that meaningfully impact prices?
Yeah, so I think we make a lot of our motors and battery packs and a lot of stuff in India, aluminum, castings and all that. So at least 30% growth in pricing or rise in pricing. Impacts are basic idea of pricing that we started with, and it's hurting us for sure. I don't know I don't think this is a phenomenon that will stay for long. It should come down. This is what my sense is. Currently, it is hurting us. We're not passing out to the consumers, but if it stays for long, I think we'll have to eventually pass it on. Lithium batteries are currently in demand. So prices, I think everybody says about dropping lithium ion per kilowatt hour, but I think as a buyer, I don't see that. That is reversed a little bit in the last 18 to 24 months. So the prices have gone up, not gone down, because the batteries that we buy a little more, high discharge, high capacity. So that is what our case is. But yes, it is a supply chain and a pricing nightmare right now. So we will go through it as the COVID.
Sure. Thanks, Kapil. I think we're almost around time, and I'll ask, maybe take the last question. Maybe Animesh, you can take this. We have a question around enhancing experience in terms of autonomous vehicles. Maybe I'll just add some more color to that. Autonomous vehicles, of course, if we talk about it from an India perspective, we don't have access control roads, and all of that is still some way away. But in terms of, if we look at two-wheelers as a mode of, as a commercial vehicle, that's one of the largest commercial vehicles in India as a two-wheeler by the sheer population, right? How do you see from that perspective the role of, say, autonomous or semi-autonomous in the two-wheeler space in the coming years?
Two-wheeler space, frankly, that's something which is, I'm not sure it is there in the horizon, because see, by definition, getting ADAS is like it's a hands-off, right? It's autonomous driving. The car drives by itself. When it comes to a bike, there is a balancing element to it. So I'm not sure that we're going to see that anywhere in the near future. Definitely on the four-wheeler, there's a lot of work going on. There are I mean, it's already available in US and Europe. Probably a matter of time before it comes into India in one form or the other. But that's on the four-wheeler. I frankly don't see it happening in any time soon, in India at least, on the two-wheeler.
I would like to add to what Animesh said. So
Yeah,
what is being requested? Yeah, what is being requested now, based on all the feedback that I have got from the customers, especially in India or elsewhere in APAC, is mostly about the driver assistance, advanced driver assistance system. Like, okay, have a possibility to identify the potholes ahead of me in the road, or to have a detection that the roads are not good. There is a heavy gradient of tires, so ideally the tire health would be deteriorating if you are driving constantly on this road. These kind of requests are being put in, which is more like driver assistance, and also to say, okay, I had this junction which has a lot of traffic congestion, and you need to be careful while you are passing that place. So you need to have the two-wheeler specific alerts or warners there. Like there is what I meant is also that there are a lot of trucks passing by that road, so be careful while you are crossing. In India, though you have the signal and other systems, you should still be careful. So these kind of information is being requested. So that is slowly moving towards the autonomous aspect, but we will not be fully autonomous in this section.
Thanks, Rajesh, for that perspective. In fact, gentlemen, we're around time for closure. Thanks so much for your perspective. I think it's been a very enriching discussion for all of us, I'm sure, talking about the importance of data, how two-wheelers will not just be a mode of commute, but to remain connected. The aspects on safety, and how I'm glad OEMs are talking about looking at it critically in terms of how, as we add features and make it table stake, how safety can be incorporated along the way. EV as a service, and that's something which I think will play a very critical role, both in driving sales as well as enabling a better customer experience from an IoT and being connected perspective. Thanks for providing all of that perspective. I'm sure the participants on this call will take back important aspects to reflect upon. And with that, we'll conclude the panel discussion, and I'll hand it back to Rohit for the closing remarks.
Thanks, Bhushan. Thank you. So thank you everybody for joining us today for today's live session. I hope you enjoyed the session and found it useful for your business. I would firstly like to thank our wonderful audience for their enthusiastic participation, answering all the polls, asking all the questions. Really appreciate your enthusiasm. And I would also request you to take a few minutes to answer the feedback, the form that opens when you exit the session. Next, I wanted to take this time to especially thank our speaker group for taking out the time for their busy schedule for this. We really appreciate your support. And lastly, would like to thank our partner here, Technologies, for supporting us for this session. Thank you all for joining us once again. And in terms of what we are doing next, we are back with another webinar on bus electrification. The event takes place on 21st April at 3 p.m. So in exactly 2 weeks from now. Registrations open next week. So do join us for the same if you're keen. In the meantime, here is a goodbye from all of us at TWF. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.